Yeah, Father, Messiah, and Holy Spirit be with us. And certain men came down from Yehuda and were teaching the brothers, unless you are circumcised according to the practice of Moshe, you are unable to be saved. So when Shaul and Barnabas had no small dissension and dispute with them, they arranged for Shaul and Barnabas and certain others of them to go up to Jerusalem to the emissaries and elders about this question. So being sent on their way by the assembly, they passed through Phoenicia and Shamaron, relating the conversion of the nations, and they were causing great joy to all the brothers. And having arrived in Jerusalem, they were received by the assembly and the emissaries and the elders, and they reported all that Elohim had done with them. And some of the believers who belonged to the sect of the Pharisees rose up, saying, it is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the Torah of Moshe. And the emissaries and elders came together to look into this matter. And when there had been much dispute, Kepha rose up and said to them, men, brothers, you know that a good while ago Elohim chose among us that by my mouth the nations should hear the word of the good news and believe. And Elohim, who knows the heart, bore witness to them by giving them the set apart spirit, so also to us, and made distinction between us and them, cleansing their hearts by belief. Now then, why do you try Elohim by putting a yoke on the neck of the taught ones, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? But through the favor of the Master, Yahushua Messiah, we trust to be saved in the same way as they. But through the favor of the Master, Yahushua Messiah, we trust to be saved in the same way as they. And all the crowd was silent and were listening to Barnabas and Shaul, declaring how many miracles and wonders Elohim did among the nations through them. And after they were silent, Jacob answered, saying, men, brothers, listen to me. Shimon has declared how Elohim first visited the nations to take out of them a people for his name, and the words of the prophets agree with this, as it has been written, after this I shall return and rebuild the booth of David, which has fallen down, and I shall rebuild its ruins, and I shall set it up, so that the remnant of mankind shall seek our Father in heaven, even all the nations on whom my name has been called, says our Father in heaven, who is doing all this, who has made this known from of old. Therefore I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim, but that we write to them to abstain from the defilements of idols, and from whoring, and from what is strangled, and from blood. For from ancient generations Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath. Then it seemed good to the emissaries and elders with all the assembly to send chosen men from among them to Antioch, with Shaul and Barnabas, Yehuda being called Barsaba, and Silas, leading men among the brothers, having written by their hand this emissaries and the elders and the brothers to the brothers who are of the nations in Antioch and Syria and Cilicia, greetings, since we have heard that some who went out from us have troubled you with words, unsettling your lives, to whom we gave no command. It seemed good to us, having become of one mind, to send chosen men to you with our beloved Barnabas and Shaul, men who have given up their lives for the name of our Master Yahushua Messiah. We have therefore sent Yehuda and Silas, who are also confirming this by word of mouth. For it seemed good to the set apart spirit, and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessities, that you abstain from what is offered to idols, and blood, and what is strangled, and whoring. If you keep yourselves from these, you shall do well. Be strong. They therefore, being sent off, went to Antioch, and having gathered the crowd together, they delivered the letter, and having read it, they rejoiced over its encouragement. And Yehuda and Silas being themselves also prophets, encouraged the brothers with many words and strengthened them. And having spent some time, they were sent back in peace from the brothers to the emissaries. But it seemed good to Silas to remain. And Shaul and Barnabas continued in Antioch, teaching and bringing with many others also the good news, the word of our Father in heaven. And after some days, Shaul said to Barnabas, Let us now go back and visit our brothers in every city where we proclaim the word of our Father in heaven, and see how they are. And Barnabas purposed to take with them Johanan, called Marcus, but Shaul thought it not fit to take with them the one who withdrew from them in Pamphylia, and had not gone with them to the work. A sharp feeling therefore came to be, so that they parted from one another. And so Barnabas took Marcus and sailed to Cyprus. And Shaul chose Silas and went off, being committed by the brothers to the favor of Elohim. And he went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the assemblies. And he came to Derbe and Lystra, and see, a certain taught one was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain Yehudi woman who believed, but his father was Greek, who was well spoken of by the brothers who were at Lystra and Iconium. Shaul hoped to have this one go with him, and he took him and circumcised him because of the Yehudim who were in those places, for they all knew that his father was Greek. And as they went through the cities, they delivered to them the regulations to keep, which were decided by the emissaries and elders at Jerusalem. Then indeed the assemblies were strengthened in the belief and increased in number every day. And having passed through Phrygia and the Galatian country, they were forbidden by the set apart spirit to speak the word in Asia. When they came to Messiah, they tried to go into Bithynia, but the spirit did not allow them. And having passed by Messiah, they came down to Troas. And in the night a vision appeared to Shaul, a man of Macedonia, was standing begging him and saying, Come over to Macedonia and help us. And when he saw the vision, immediately we sought to go to Macedonia, concluding that the master had called us to bring the good news to them. Therefore sailing from Troas, we ran a straight course to Samothrace, and the next day came to Neapolis, and from there to Philippia, which is the principal city of that part of Macedonia, a colony. And we were staying in that city for some days. And on the Sabbath day, we went outside the city by a river where there used to be prayer. And having sat down, we were speaking to the woman who met there, and a certain woman named Ludia, a seller of purple from the city of Thyatira, worshiping Elohim, was hearing, whose heart the master did open to pay attention to what Shaul said. And when she was immersed in her household, she begged us, saying, If you have judged me to be believing in the master, come to my house and stay. And she urged us. And it came to be, as we went to prayer, that a certain slave girl possessed with the spirit of Puthan did meet us, who brought her masters much profit by foretelling, having followed Shaul and us. She cried out, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High Elohim, who proclaim to us the way of deliverance. And she was doing this for many days. But Shaul greatly annoyed, turned and said to the spirit, I command you in the name of Yahushua Messiah to come out of her. And it came out that same hour. Having followed Shaul and us, she cried out, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High Elohim, who proclaim to us the way of deliverance. And she was doing this for many days. But Shaul greatly annoyed. He was greatly annoyed. Understand these things, just understand these things. Have the understanding. Turned and said to the spirit, I command you in the name of Yahushua Messiah to come out of her. And it came out that same hour. But when her masters saw that their anticipation of money making was gone, they seized Shaul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace to the rulers. And having brought them to the captains, they said, These men, being Yehudim, greatly disturb our city, and then proclaim practices which are not right for us to receive, nor to do, being Romans. And the crowd rose up together against them, and the captains tore off their garments and commanded them to be beaten with rods. And having laid many blows upon them, they threw them into prison, commanding the jailer to keep them safely. Who, having received such a command, put them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in the stocks. And at midnight, Shaul and Silas were praying and singing songs to Elohim, and the prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly a great earthquake took place, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were open, and all the chains came loose. And the jailer, awaking from sleep and seeing the prison doors open, thinking the prisoners had fled, drew his sword and was about to kill himself. But Shaul called with a loud voice, saying, "Do no harm to yourself, for we are all here." And asking for a light, he ran in and fell down trembling before Shaul and Silas. And having led them outside, he said, "Masters, what do I have to do to be saved?" And they said, "Believe on the Master Yahushua, Messiah, you shall be saved, you and your household." And they spoke the word of our Father in heaven to him and to all who were in his house. And taking them in that hour of the night, he washed their wounds, and immediately he was immersed, he and all that were his. And having brought them into his house, he set foot before them, and he rejoiced with all his households, having believed in Elohim. And when day came, the authorities sent the officers, saying, "Let these men go." And the jailer reported these words to Shaul, saying, "The captains have sent to let you go. Now then, come out and go in peace." But Shaul said to them, "They have beaten us publicly, uncondemned, being Romans. They have thrown us into prison, and now do they throw us out secretly? No, indeed. Let them come themselves and bring us out." And the officers reported these words to the authorities, and they were afraid. When they heard that they were Romans, and having come, they pleaded with them and brought them out, and asked them to leave the city. So coming out of the prison, they went to Ludia, and seeing the brothers, they encouraged them and went forth. And having passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a congregation of the Yehudim. And according to his practice, Shaul went in unto them, and for 3 Sabbaths was reasoning with them from the scriptures, explaining and pointing out that the Messiah had to suffer and rise again from the dead, and saying, "This is the Messiah, Yahushua, whom I proclaim to you." And some of them did believe, and a large number of the worshipping Greeks, and not a few of the leading women, joined Shaul and Silas. But the Yehudim, who did not believe, having become envious, took some of the wicked men from the marketplace, and gathering a mob, set all the city in an uproar, and came upon the house of Jason, and were seeking to bring them out to the people. But not finding them, they dragged Jason and some of the brothers to the city rulers, crying out, They who have turned the world upside down have come here too, whom Jason has received, and all of them are acting contrary to the dogmas of Caesar, saying there is another sovereign, Yehuda. And they troubled the crowd and the city rulers when they heard this. And when they had received a pledge from Jason and the rest, they let them go. And the brothers immediately sent Shaul and Silas away by night to Beeroi, who, having come, went into the congregation of the Yehudim. Now these were more noble than those in Thessalonica, who received the word with great eagerness, and searched the scriptures daily, if these words were so. Then many of them truly believed, and also not a few of the Greeks, decent women as well as men. And when the Yehudim from Thessalonica came to know that the word of Elohim was proclaimed by Shaul at Beeroi, they came there also and stirred up. They came there also and stirred up. And stirred up the crowds. And then immediately the brothers sent Shaul away to go to the sea. But both Silas and Timotheus stayed there, and those who arranged for Shaul brought him to Athens. And receiving a command for Silas and Timotheus to join him as soon as possible, they departed. But while Shaul was waiting for them at Athens, his spirit was stirred up within him when he saw that the city was utterly idolatrous. Therefore, indeed, he was reasoning in the congregation with the Yehudim and with the worshippers, and in the marketplace daily with those who met there. And some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers encountered him. And some were saying, "What does this babbler hope to say?" Others said, "He seems to be a proclaimer of strange mighty ones, because to them he brought the good news, Yahushua, and the resurrection." So they laid hold of him and brought him to the Areopagus, saying, Are we able to know what this fresh teaching is of which you speak? For you are bringing some strange matters to our ears. We hope then to know what these mean. For all the Athenians and the strangers living there spent their leisure time in doing naught but to speak or to hear of what is fresh. And having stood in the midst of the Areopagus, Shaul said, Men of Athenians, I see that you are very religious in every matter. These guys went everywhere preaching the gospel. We need to do the same. For passing through and observing the objects of your worship, I even found a slaughter place with this inscription to the unknown mighty one. Not knowing then whom you worship, I make him known to you. Our Father in heaven, who made the world and all that is in it, this one being master of heaven and earth, does not dwell in dwellings made with hands, nor is he served with men's hands, as if needing any, himself giving to all life and breath and all else. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, having ordained beforehand the times and the boundaries of their dwelling, to seek the master, if at least they would reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and are, as also some of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. Now then, since we are the offspring of Elohim, we should not think that the Elohim is like gold or silver or stone, an image made by the skill and thought of man. Truly then, having overlooked these times of ignorance, Elohim now commands all men elsewhere to repent, because he has set a day on which he is going to judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed, having given proof of this to all by raising him from the dead, and hearing of the resurrection of the dead. Some indeed mocked, while others said, We shall hear you again concerning this. And so Shaul went out from among them, but some men joined him and believed among the Dionysius, the Areopagite, and a woman named Damaris, and others with them. Dionysius, the Areopagite, and a woman named Damaris, and others with them. And after this Shaul left Athens and went to Corinth, and he found a certain Yehudi named Achilles, born in Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had commanded all the Yehudim to leave Rome. And he came to them, and because he was of the same trade, he stayed with them and was working, for they were tent makers by trade. And he was reasoning in the congregation every Sabbath, and won over both Yehudim and Greeks. And when Silas and Timotheus came down from Macedonia, Shaul was pressed by the Spirit, and earnestly witnessed to the Yehudim that Yahushua is the Messiah. However, when they resisted and blasphemed, he shook his garments and said to them, Your blood is upon your head. I am clean. From now on I shall go to the nations. And having left there, he came to the house of a certain man named Justus, who worshipped Elohim, whose house was next to the congregation. And Crispus, the ruler of the congregation, did believe in the master with all his household. And many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed and were immersed. Hearing, believed, and were immersed. And the master spoke to Shaul. I believe the next book is called Corinthians. Hearing, believed, and were immersed. And the master spoke to Shaul in the night by a vision, Do not be afraid, but speak, and do not be silent, because I am with you, and no one shall attack you because I am with you, and no one shall attack you to do you evil, because I have much people in the city. And he remained 1 year and 6 months, teaching the word of our Father in heaven among them. And when Galilean was proconsul of Achaia, the Yehudim, with one mind, was up against Shaul and brought him to the judgment seat, saying, This one does seduce men to worship Elohim contrary to the Torah. And as Shaul was about to open his mouth, Galilean said to the Yehudim, If it were a matter of wrongdoing or wicked recklessness of Yehudim, there would be a reason why I should bear with you. But if it is a question of words and names in a law which is among you, see to it yourselves. For I do not hope to be a judge of these matters. And he drove them away from the judgment seat. And all the Greeks told Sosthenes, how do you pronounce this? Sosthenes, the ruler of the congregation, and beat him before the judgment seat. But Galilean showed no concern whatever, show no concern whatever. And Shaul, having stayed several days more, having taken leave of the brothers, was sailing for Syria, and Persilia and Aquilus were with him, having shaved his hair at Kenhira, for he had taken a vow. And he came to Ephesus and left them there, but he himself went into the congregation and reasoned with the Yehudim. And when they asked him to stay a longer time with them, he declined, but took leave of them, saying, I have to keep this coming festival in Jerusalem by all means, but I shall come back to you, Elohim desiring so. And he sailed from Ephesus and having come to Sisera, going up and greeting the assembly, he went down to Antioch, and having spent some time there, he went forth, passing through the country of Galatia and on through Phrygia, strengthening all the tall ones. And a certain Yehudi named Apollos, born at Alexandria, a learned man and mighty in the scriptures, came to Ephesus. This one had been instructed in the way of the master, and being fervent in spirit, he was speaking and teaching the matters about the master though he knew only the immersion of Yohanan. And he began to speak boldly in the congregation. And when Aquilus and Persilia heard him, they took him aside and explained to him the way of Elohim more exactly. And when he intended to pass through the Asia, the brothers, having encouraged him, wrote to the taught ones to receive him, who, having arrived, greatly helped those who believed through favor. But with power he refuted the Yehudim publicly, showing from the scriptures that Yahushua is the Messiah. Yeah, this is tough. And it came to be, while Apollos was at Corinth, that Shaul, having passed through the upper parts, came to Ephesus, and having found some taught ones, and he said to them, Did you receive the set apart spirit when you believed? And they said to him, No, we have not even heard that there is a set apart spirit. And he said to them, Into what then were you immersed? And they said, Into Yohanan's immersion. And Shaul said, Yohanan indeed immersed with an immersion of repentance, saying to the people that they should believe in the one who is coming after him, that is in Messiah, that is Messiah Yahushua. And when they heard this, they were immersed into the name of the Master Yahushua. And when Shaul had laid hands on them, the set apart spirit came upon them, and they were speaking in tongues and prophesying, and all the men were about 12. Amen. And having gone into the congregation, he spoke boldly for 3 months, reasoning and persuading concerning the reign of Elohim. But when some were hardened and did not believe, speaking evil of the way before the crowd, he withdrew from them and separated the taught ones, reasoning daily in the school of Tyrannus. And this took place for 2 years, so that all who dwelt in Asia heard the word of the Master Yahushua, both Yehudim and Greeks. And Elohim worked unusual miracles through the hands of Shaul, so that even handkerchiefs or aprons were brought from his body to the sick, and the disease left them, and the wicked spirits went out of them. But certain roving Yehudi exorcists took it upon themselves to call the name of the Master Yahushua over those who had wicked spirits, saying, We exorcise you by Yahushua, whom shall proclaim. We exercise you by Yahushua, whom Shaul proclaims. And there were seven sons of a certain Sukui, a Yehudi chief priest, who were doing this. And the wicked spirit answering said, Yahushua I know, and Shaul I know, but who are you? And the man in whom the wicked spirit was leaped on them, and the man in whom the wicked spirit was leaped on them overpowered them and prevailed against them, so that they fled out of that house naked and wounded. And this became known to all, both Yehudim and Greeks dwelling in Ephesus. And fear fell on them. All in the name of the Master Yahushua was made great. And many who had believed came confessing and declaring their deeds. And many of those who had practiced magic brought their books together, burning them before all, and they reckoned up the value of them, and found it to be 50,000 pieces of silver. So the word of the Master was growing mightily and prevailing. Now when these matters had been completed, Shaul purposed in the spirit, when he had passed through Macedonia and Asia to go to Jerusalem, saying, After I have been there, I have to see Rome too. They went everywhere, man. This is a blessing. This is beautiful to read and beautiful to see. Amen. And having sent into Macedonia two of those assisting him, Timotheus and Erastus, he himself remained in Asia for a time, and about that time there came to be a great commotion about the way. For a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, who made silver shrines of Artemis, provided no little business of the craftsmen, who, having called them together with the workers of similar trades, said, "Men, you know that our wealth is from the." It said, "Men, you know that our wealth is from this business, and you see and hear that not only at Ephesus, but throughout almost all Asia, this Shaul has persuaded and turned away a large number, saying that they are not mighty ones, saying that they are not mighty ones, which are made with hands. And not only is this trade of ours in danger of coming to rejection, but also that the temple of the great female mighty one, Artemis, whom all Asia and the world worship, shall be regarded as worthless, and her greatness diminished." And having heard this, they were filled with rage and cried out, saying, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians!" And the entire city was filled with confusion, and they rushed with one mind into the theater, having seized Gaius and Aristachus, Macedonians, Shaul's fellow travelers, and Shaul, intending to go in among the mob, the taught ones did not allow him, and some of the officials of Asia, being his friends, sent to him, begging him not to risk himself into the theater. Then others indeed shouted this, and others that, for the assembly was confused, and most of them did not know why they had come together. And some of the crowd instructed Alexander the Yehudim, putting him forward, and Alexander motioned with his hand, and hoped to make his defense to the people. But having recognized that he was a Yehudim, all with one voice cried out for about 2 hours, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." And the city clerk, having calmed the crowd, said, Men of Ephesus, what man is there who does not know that the city of the Ephesians is the guardian of the temple of the great female mighty one Artemis, and of that which fell down from Zeus, Therefore, if these matters are undeniable, you need to be calm and do not act rashly, for you have brought these men here who are neither temple robbers nor speaking evil of your female mighty one. If truly then Demetrius and his fellow craftsmen have a case against anyone, the courts are open, and there are proconsuls. Let them accuse one another, and if you have any further complaint, it shall be settled in the regular assembly. For we are in danger of being accused of riot concerning today, there being no reason which we could give to account for this disorderly gathering." And having said this, he dismissed the assembly. After the uproar had ceased, Shaul called the tall ones to him, and having embraced them, went away to go to Macedonia. And having gone through those parts, and having encouraged them with many words, he came to Greece, where he spent 3 months. When he was about to sail to Syria, he decided to return through Macedonia, as a plot was made against him by the Yehudim, and he was accompanied by Sopater, Beoriah, and Aristarchus, and Succados of the Thessalonians, and Gaius of Derbe, and Timotheus, and Tuchaius, and Trophimus of Asia, and these going ahead waited for us at Troas, and we sailed away from Philippia after the days of unleavened bread, and came to them at Troas in 5 days, where we stayed 7 days, and on day 1 of the week, the taught ones having gathered together to break bread, Shaul, intending to depart the next day, was reasoning with them, and was extending the word till midnight. And there were many lamps in the upper room where they were assembled. And a certain young man by name eat a choice, eat a chus, these words, man, and these names. Eat a chus. Father, how do we pronounce this? Eat a chus. I believe that's it. Was sitting in a window, being overpowered by a deep sleep. As Shaul kept on reasoning, he was overcome by sleep and fell down from the third story and was picked up dead. And Shaul, having gone down, fell on him and embracing him said, "Do not be upset, for his life is in him." Then going up again and having broken bread and eaten, he talked a long while, even till daybreak. And so went forth, and they brought the young man in alive and were encouraged not a little. And we going ahead to the ship. And they brought the young man in alive and were encouraged not a little. And we going ahead to the ship sailed to Assos, intending to take Shaul on board there, for so he had arranged, intending himself to go on foot. And when he met us at Assos, we took him on board and came to Mytilene, and from there we sailed, and the next day came opposite Chios, and the next day we arrived at Samos and remained at Tragulian, and the following day we came to Miletos, for Shaul had decided to sail past Ephesus so that he might lose no time in Asia, for he was hurrying to be at Jerusalem, if possible, on the day of the festival of Shavuot. And from Miletos he sent to Ephesus and called for the elders of the assembly. And when they had come to him, he said to them, "You know from the first day that I came to Asia, how I was with you all that the time, serving the master with all humility, with many tears and trials which befell me by the plotting of the Yehudim, as I kept back no matter that was profitable, but proclaimed it to you and taught you publicly and from house to house, witnessing to Yehudim, and also to Greeks, repentance toward Elohim and belief in our Master Yahushua Messiah. And now see, I go bound in the spirit to Jerusalem, not knowing what is going to meet me there, except that the set apart spirit witnesses in every city, saying that chains and pressures await me. But I do not count my life of any value to me, so that I might accomplish my mission with joy, and a service which I received from the Master Yahushua, to bear witness to the good news of the favor of Elohim. And now see, I know that you all among whom I went about proclaiming the reign of Elohim shall see my face no more. Therefore I witness to you this day that I am clear from the blood of all, for I kept not back from declaring to you all the counts of Elohim. Therefore take heed to yourselves and to all the flock among which the set apart spirit has made you overseers, to shepherd the assembly of Elohim, which he has purchased with his own blood. For I know this, that after my departure, savage wolves shall come in among you, not sparing the flock. Also from among yourselves men shall arise, speaking distorted teachings, to draw away the taught ones after themselves. Therefore watch, remembering that for 3 years, night and day, I did not cease to warn each one with tears. And now, brothers, I commit you to Elohim, and to the word of his favor, which is able to build you up and give you an inheritance among all those having And now, brothers, I commit you to Elohim, into the word of his favor, which is able to build you up and give you an inheritance among all those having been set apart. I have coveted no one's silver or gold or garments, and you yourselves know that these hands supplied my needs. And for those who were with me, all this I did show you by laboring like this, that you ought to help the weak, and remember the words of the Master Yahushua, that he said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." And having said this, he knelt down and prayed with them all. And there was much weeping among them all, and falling on Shaul's neck, they kissed him, distressed most of all because of the word which he had said, that they would see his face no more. And they went with him to the ship. And it came to be, when we had torn ourselves away from them and had set sail, we ran a straight course and came to Kos. and the next day to Rhodes, and from there to Patara. And having found a ship passing over to Phoenicia, we went abroad and set sail. And having sighted Cyprus, and having passed it on the left, we sailed to Syria and landed at Tisor, for the ship was to unload her cargo there. And having found taught ones, we remained there seven days. And they told Shaul through the Spirit not to go up to Jerusalem. And when it came to be that our days were ended, we left and went on, all of them accompanying us with wives and children till we were out of the city. And kneeling down on the beach, we prayed, and having embraced one another, we boarded the ship, and they returned and having embraced one another, we boarded the ship, and they returned to their homes. And when we had completed our voyage from Tisor, we came to Ptolemaeus, and having greeted the brothers, we stayed with them one day. And on the next day we left and came to Caesarea, and went into the house of Philip the evangelist, who was one of the 7, and stayed with him. Now this one had 4 maiden daughters who prophesied. And as we were staying many days, a certain prophet named Hagab came down from Yehuda, and having come to us, he took the girdle of Shaul and bound his own hands and feet, and said, Thus says the set apart Spirit, thus shall the Yehudim at Jerusalem bind the man who owns. Thus shall the Yehudim at Jerusalem bind the man who owns this girdle, and deliver him into the hands of the nations. And when we heard this, both we and those from that place begged him not to go up to Jerusalem. And Shaul answered, What do you mean by weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Master Yahushua. He said, and Shaul answered, he was going hard, bro. Like this is sad for me to read too. He says, What do you mean by weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Master Yahushua. As he could not be persuaded, we ceased, saying, Let the desire of the Master be done. And after those days, having made ready, we went up to Jerusalem. And also some of the taught ones from Caesarea went with us, and brought with them one Manasseh of Cyprus, an early taught one, with whom we were to lodge. And when we had arrived in Jerusalem, the brothers received us gladly. And on the following day, Shaul went in with us to Jacob, and all the elders came, and having greeted them, he was relating one by one what Elohim had done among the nations through his service. And when they heard it, they praised the Master, and they said to him, You see, brother, how many thousands of Yehudim there are who have believed, and all are ardent for the Torah. But they have been informed about you that you teach all the Yehudim who are among the nations to forsake Moshe. He never said that, saying not to circumcise the children, nor to walk according to the practices. What then is it? They shall certainly hear that you have come. What then is it? They shall certainly hear that you have come. So do this. What we say to you, we have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be cleansed with them, and pay their expenses, so that they shave their heads, and all shall know that what they have been informed about you is not so, but that you yourself also walk orderly, keeping the Torah. But concerning the nations who believe, we have written it and decided that they should keep themselves from what is offered to idols, and blood, and what is strangled, and whoring. Then Shaul took the men on the next day, and having been cleansed with them, went into the set apart place to announce the completion of the days of separation, until the offering should be presented for each one of them. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jerusalem from Asia, seeing him in the set apart place, were stirring up all the crowd, and they laid hands on him, crying out, Men of Israel, help! This is the man who was teaching all men everywhere against the people and the Torah in this place. And besides, he also brought Greeks into the set apart place, and has profaned this set apart place, because they had previously seen Trophimus, the Ephesian with him in the city, whom they thought that Shaul had brought into the set of our place. And the entire city was moved, and the people rushed together, seized Shaul and dragged him out of the set of our place. And immediately the doors were shut. And while they were seeking to kill him, a report came to the commander of the company of soldiers that all Jerusalem was in confusion. At once he took soldiers and captains and ran down to them. And they, having seen the commander and the soldiers, stopped beating Shaul. Then the commander came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains, and was asking who he was and what he had done. And in the crowd some were shouting this and others that, and not being able to ascertain the truth because of the uproar, he commanded him to be taken into the barracks. And when he came to the stairs, he had to be carried by the soldiers because of the violence of the crowd, for a large number of the people followed after, crying out, "Away with him!" And as Shaul was about to be led into the barracks, he said to the commander, Am I allowed to say somewhat to you?" And he said, "Do you know Greek? Are you not the Mitzrayite who some time ago stirred up a revolt and led the 4,000 assassins out into the wilderness?" The revolt and the 4,000 assassins out into the wilderness. But Shaul replied, "I am a Yehudi from Tarsus and Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beg you allow me to speak to the people." And having given him permission, Shaul was standing on the stairs, motioned with his hands to the people. And when there was a great silence, he spoke in the Hebrew language, saying, I'm going to stop and start it again.